and back.
LC flight, Starliner configured for terminal count.
On my mark,
Roger.
the time will be T-minus 4 minutes and count. 3, 2, 1, mark. 3:55.
Resumed for
Ground
on-time
power is enabled.
liftoff.
Just beautiful words from Butch there. No better example of unity on this planet than what happens at the International Space Station, where Butch and Sunny are headed in just 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
3:30.
Atlas hydraulics at flight press.
Atlas boosters hydraulic steering systems now pressurized for launch.
Starliner's LAS prop valves are configured for launch, the propulsion valves that need to be open in the case of an abort from the pad.
3 minutes.
Pressurizing Atlas tanks. Securing LO2 topping.
250. FTS internal.
Flight software is in Ascent mode. It is now set for the uphill climb.
$159. Vehicle internal. 155. Launch sequencer start. 150.
Securing Centaur LH2.
Securing Centaur LO2.
Vehicle is now transferred to its onboard batteries, and topping is
140.
completed.
Launch enabled. 137. FTS armed. $120. OCU's armed. SCS count started. EDS Ascent.
Starliner, last arm to auto.
Last arm auto.
Roger.
That call meaning if the emergency detection system on Atlas
minute.
detects something,
Rock report range status.
Range green.
It will
54. POP started.
it will trigger the launch abort system on Starliner and fire automatically. If that happened, the spacecraft would push itself away from the rocket a mile up and a mile
40.
out.
Atlas at flight press.
Centaur at flight press. 25.
Status check. Go Atlas. Go Centaur. Go Starliner. Godspeed, Butch and Sunny.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Starliner and Atlas V, carrying two American heroes, drawing a line to the stars for all of us.
Commander Butch Wilmer there, calling down to Mission Control here in Houston that the spacecraft has begun rolling into the right attitude for its ascent, and the Guidance Navigation and Control Officer here in the room seeing good data on that.
Starliner passing through max Q, or the point of maximum dynamic pressure where the forces of air friction are highest, which in Sunny will shortly be passing through Mach 1, where the speed of sound.
You got a good throttle up.
Starliner and Atlas. Looking good with speeds and attitude increasing as expected. Coming up in less than 20 seconds, the solid rocket boosters will run out of fuel and burn out.
Good SRB burnout.
Good SRB.
Now that the fuel in the solid rocket boosters has been depleted, the Atlas main booster stage will be continuing its burn for about the next 3 minutes.
Good handle.
Good handle.
That call, good handle, from Capcom Joshua Kutrick, indicating that the crew now has the ability to initiate an abort manually if needed. All looking good so far. Now 2 minutes into Starliner's flight and coming up on the solid rocket booster jettison at the 2 minute and 40-second mark.
CLG and net, good trajectory.
CLG.
The solid rocket boosters have now been jettisoned after seeing Starliner through its first 90 seconds of flight. Team on the ground here confirming that it was a good jettison and that the vehicle's trajectory continues to look good. Now 3 minutes into today's flight.
Atlas booster now throttling back to limit the G-forces on Butch and Sunny, trying to limit that to around 3.5 times the force of gravity you would feel while on the ground.
Staging.
Here in the ground.
Decals open, you have sublimator rack.
Decal sub-act. Decal. Great act.
Team on the ground reporting that they saw the Ascent cover on top of Starliner that's been protecting the spacecraft's docking system through its climb into orbit. They saw that jettison as planned.
Staging was good. You have good control.
And now the second stage's 2 Centaur engines have ignited to continue pushing Starliner into space, fueled by liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. The next milestone that we'll be watching for is the aeroskirt jettison.
Starliner, you had good booster performance. You're up to plus 31.
Plus 31.
Atlas Control reporting booster performance offset of 31 seconds of ISP, or specific impulse, relative to its design baseline of around 450.
All continuing to perform well, almost 7 minutes into today's flight.
Good Centaur.
Good Centaur.
Capcom Joshua Kutrick. Continuing to pass good news up to Starliner's crew. At last one reporting that the Centaur upper stage remains in good condition and is performing well, pushing them into orbit.
St. John's open.
St. John's.
Starliner is now entering its first guided abort range, where Starliner would direct itself towards a specific location in the event of abort. In this case, just off the coast of St. John's, the capital of the Canadian province of Newfoundland Labrador.
Starliner, MECO converged 11:5 to 11:52. Good perf, you're at 34 to 36 seconds.
11:52, 34 seconds.
That call letting the crew know that the main engine cutoff, MECO, should happen just about on time, about 12 minutes into today's flight. Another good indication that Starliner's Ascent is taking along exactly as expected. Main engine cutoff is a major milestone marking Starliner's arrival on orbit. Still got about 2.5 minutes until we get to that. With the spacecraft continuing to perform well, make its way towards orbit.
No action, Starliner, on the LCL. That's just the system coming up into controlling mode.
Outstanding. No action.
Once the main engine is cut off, the next step will be the launch vehicle separation. That's set to occur just short of 15 minutes after launch, when Starliner will separate from the rocket and fly free in space for the first time. Flight Dynamics officer reporting that at this point, Starliner could potentially make an abort
Starliner,
landing
yep,
off
good
the coast of
cooling.
Ireland.
Good cooling.
And they're, again, all continuing well, so we're not expecting to need that abort.
As Starliner is rapidly approaching orbital velocity, this abort region is only available for just over 1 minute, where Starliner would just continue up to orbit after that.
30 seconds to Miko.
Just 30 seconds to go. Now until main engine cutoff, marking Starliner's arrival on orbit.
Nominal Miko Starliner.
Nominal Miko.
And with that nominal MECO call, that's main engine cutoff. We've got good energy, meaning a good velocity for continuing to orbit, and a good plane, meaning Starliner's trajectory is aligned with the International Space Station for rendezvous tomorrow.
And with that, Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams returned to orbit. Individually, they are both extremely experienced astronauts.
14-5 to 1452.
1452.
They're both very experienced astronauts with a combined total of 489 days in space between them. Starliner is also the third spacecraft that they've launched in. Both have traveled to the International Space Station via space shuttles and Soyuz and are now well on their way to repeating the journey via Starliner. It's also worth noting that Williams' role as pilot marks the first time that a woman has crewed a flight test of an orbital spacecraft.
Just a few seconds ago, you heard Capcom Joshua Kutrich calling up to Butch and Sunny. With the expected time, Starliner will separate from Centaur at about 14 minutes, 52 seconds into flight, just under 2 minutes from now, or 1 minute from now.
That is actually the last major milestone for Starliner's ascent. All the hard work is done, but we need for Starliner to be flying on its own before it can begin heading towards the International Space Station. There's a slight pause in the action here while Centaur repressurizes and does some attitude control. We'll get into the right orientation to send Centaur on its way and then jettison it and move into the right orientation for the orbital insertion burn, which will come about 31 minutes into flight.
No action on the cabin temp Starliner.
No action.
And about 10 seconds until an expected launch vehicle separation.
LV SEP confirmed.
Good LV set.
And now that Starliner has separated from this Centaur upper stage, we have a big thank you to our partners at ULA, providing Butch and Sunny a smooth ride to space.
That is not the end of today's orbit activity, though. The team will now be getting ready for the orbital insertion burn, which comes 31 minutes after flight. So that's still about 15 minutes away now. Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore will be getting their tablets out and doing a few other activities to get Starliner ready for that. And that will be one of the, that will be the first in a series of burns that will set Starliner on its way to the International Space Station. Once again, Starliner with astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams on board launched from Florida, the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, Launch Pad 41 at 9:52 a.m. Central, 10:52 a.m. Eastern today, and they have now made it into orbit.
Your nominal TDRA show MDL is active. You have good targeting for OI.
Good targeting.
With the call for good targeting and information about Starliner's TDRS schedule being good, means that we've got good communication with the ground. TDRS is the tracking and relay data satellites that Starliner uses to talk to the ground, and the flight controllers on the ground are seeing the
Starliner.
dynamic.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you could relay a message to our brethren at ULA.
We're all listening. Go ahead.
Yeah, they've been a member of the family for a long time, but now it's official, and we want to welcome them to human spaceflight.
We all copy all and really appreciate the words.
And Houston Starliner, we are on the tablets and in insertion monitor.
Copy tablets, we're with you, insertion monitor.
So the crew have their tablets out, so no longer using the paper procedures now that the vehicle has stopped moving so quickly. So there's a handful of things that the crew's going to do now, mostly just prepare the inside of the cockpit so they are looking at the right data to prepare for the upcoming orbital insertion burn. The vehicle itself has done a few things recently. Started to power on the solar rays on the back of Starliner and turning off several of the thrusters that are no longer needed at this phase of flight. Upcoming in about 4 minutes, Starliner is going to start to orient itself in the direction it needs to do the orbital insertion burn. And the crew inside the vehicle will be turning the wireless access point on and allow them to stream some of the data from the spacecraft onto their procedure tablets.
And Houston Starliner, last arm is off. Backup control switches, enable 1 on, enable 2 off. SMRCS is the mode.
We copy off. Enable 1 is on, enable 2 is off. SMRCS, you're in a good config.
Good config.
Your EXDV targets are on board and good.
Good EXDV.
Things will be pretty quiet as Starliner gets into position for the orbital insertion burn. That's still about 10 minutes away. Starliner is actually designed to be pretty autonomous, and in fact, docked with the space station on its last trip around without the help of any crew on board. But we do still want to know that if needed, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams could take control and manually abort the spacecraft's approach to the station if they needed to. So to prove that, one of the few things on their agenda after they reach orbit will be to perform a test of the manual piloting mode.
This test will involve first pointing Starliner's nose towards the Earth so that its communication antenna on the back of the service module is pointed at the satellites, the teeter satellites that allow it to communicate with the team on the ground. They'll then move Starliner so that its solar arrays are pointed at the sun, showing they could charge Starliner's internal batteries as needed. And they'll follow that up with a demonstration of the star trackers, one of the ways that Starliner determines where it is in space, pointing Starliner away from Earth so that the system, the Vesta system, can get a good look at the stars.
The next step will be for the crew to manually speed Starliner up and then slow back down, which will slightly raise and then lower their orbit and prove that they can manually break away from the orbit that the space station is in if they needed to. At that point, they can move on to the last
Starliner,
items of the
still no
test.
action on your cabin temp. You're in a good config. It's 74 degrees in there. Yeah, and that's just due to that T2 sensor sitting beside the light. So we're actually going to inhibit that particular sensor. We'll let you know when we bring it back online.
Okay, great. Looks like we're on our way to thrust align.
Concur.
Josh Kutrick calling up that the crew can ignore some alarms they're seeing on the temperatures inside Starliner. That's just a result of one of the sensors being next to a light that's causing it to show higher than it actually is. But it sounds like the crew are pretty comfortable and are getting into place for that orbital insertion. As I was saying, after they have manually broken away from the orbit of, proven that they can manually break away from the orbit of the space station, they are going to move on to the last items of their test for tonight. That's manually moving Starliner into the right orientation for re-entering the atmosphere, and then moving back into the attitude that will let them soak up some sun with the solar arrays and try a different method of manually charging the spacecraft's batteries. But again, once that all has to wait until after the orbital insertion burn. This is, again, the first of several burns that will put Starliner on its way to the International Space Station. We've still got about 6.5 minutes until we fire up the engines for that burn.
Starliner, we did not see the hand controller deflection. Just wanted to know if you did that yet.
No, we'll get it now.
All good.
USO establish barricades around MLP and an area beneath the MLP and perform O2 LEL checks for Trumpet 41 areas. Roger. ECS LC.
Team here on the ground seeing that everything is looking like it's in the right configuration for the orbital insertion burn. Now less than 5 minutes away. Starliner is currently about 102 miles above the Mediterranean Sea, heading southeast over India in the next few minutes.
And ECS LC.
Starliner, good config for the OI burn.
Good config for OI.
And good config from the OI burn. Crew and ground controllers noting that Starliner is pointed in the direction it needs to for the OI burn. It should also be about the time that the crew are using their tablets for their procedures, also charging them, keeping them topped up for the rest of the rendezvous.
We unfortunately won't have a view of Williams and Wilmore as they work through this procedure. Although we had a view of them from inside the cabin on the ground, Starliner isn't able to send that view to us again until it gets to the International Space Station. So you'll be seeing this screen quite a bit as Starliner was getting into the right position for the burn. And actually just now you can see some of the engines firing that help it steer and move around in space. And you can also see what attitude it's in at any given time. Lots of good information on this screen.
It is. A lot of this information actually directly mimics the views that the crew is seeing, especially the one in the upper left-hand panel. That is an exact copy of the display the crew is using for their attitude directional indicator. It also covers what mode their translational hand controller and the translational pointing is in. On the left side, on the right side, the pointing guidance, which tells the Starliner in automated mode which direction to point, or when in manual mode, which direction the crew needs to move the vehicle, like we're going to do in some of the manual piloting maneuvers. And following back up a little bit on the camera conversation, there is a planned upgrade of the Mustang system that we should see on our PCM-1 mission that will include live feeds from inside the cockpit.
And the Mustang system is the cameras that we were seeing views from earlier.
That's correct. There's a handful of cameras around the inside of Starliner. We often see the one from kind of beneath Butch and Sunny. That's given one of the better views without being directly right in their face while they're inside the cockpit during pre-launch. But once they're in orbit, they've gotten out of their seats a little bit, and we should be able to see a little bit more around the cabin.
We'll, though, as you've already heard, continue to hear regular audio updates from the crew. Everything going well now that Starliner is just under 30 minutes into today's flight. We've got about a minute and a half left to go into that orbital insertion burn that will be kind of the final end cap, really, to today's ascent, which, again, took place at 10:52 a.m. Eastern when Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams launched inside the first Starliner to carry crew members on board from the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, Launch Pad 41. They made it to orbit about 14 minutes later, and now we are just again waiting for this first of a series of burns that will set Starliner on its way to a rendezvous with the International Space Station. That is scheduled to take place at 12:15 p.m. Eastern, 11:15 a.m. Central tomorrow.
And we're coming up at about 40 seconds till the orbital insertion burn. This burn is going to take Starliner out of its slightly suborbital trajectory and push it up to an altitude that will allow us to catch up with ISS for a rendezvous later tomorrow.
15 seconds left to go, and once again you'll be able to see those engines firing on this digital screen here that show when the burn has started.
2 seconds. And flight controllers here in Houston, seeing 4 good OMACs, good burn.
We took a look. That was a good OI burn. You're maneuvering to NavCal 1.
Good eye burn, going to NavCal 1.
And with that call up, both crew and flight controllers agreeing that that was a good OI burn. I'm looking at the trajectory plot here in Mission Control. I see our trajectory pointing us directly up to the altitude we need to go to for the next burn. Right now, Starliner is moving into NavCal mode, or NavCal attitude. That's going to be the first of several positions that Starliner, directions that Starliner points itself to track some of the stars from the Starliner and update the position inside of the position orientation of Starliner inside of its guidance, navigation, and control algorithms.
And of course, you're seeing lots of happy faces and cheers here there in Florida. Everybody glad to see Starliner safely in orbit with Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams in tow, sending it on its way to the International Space Station for docking tomorrow at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Once again, Starliner safely on orbit, has conducted a good orbital insertion burn and is on its way.
Starliner Houston.
Go ahead, Starliner, Houston.
Yeah, you do have good cooling. The sublimator is working. We are watching it, though, because the water usage is just a little more than we thought we were going to see. You probably noticed that. It's a reason for the advisory there. From the ground, we'd like to swap you over to the other leg. So we're going to close sublimator leg 1, wait for about 60 seconds, and then open up leg 2. You'll see us do that. No impact or action.
Okay, we copy. We'll be watching. Thank you.
Joshua Kutrick there again, giving the crew some words about information they're seeing on orbit. This one related to sublimators, which are used to cool the spacecraft down. But just letting them know that there's nothing that they need to be concerned about. The team will keep watching that. In the meantime, as Starliner begins making its way to the International Space Station, we're going to check in with Rob Navius in the International Space Station Flight Control Room. Rob?
Yeah, thanks very much, Brandy. With Starliner en route to the station, the work now just beginning for Wilmore and Williams. First up, an important rendezvous burn called the NC burn, which will adjust Starliner's altitude relative to the station and begin to refine its path to the orbital laboratory. Flight Dynamics will be assessing the accuracy of Starliner's initial trajectory and will update any adjustments to that trajectory for subsequent maneuvers to be conducted over the next 24 hours. Now, we're expecting to hear the first of 3 audio reports from the crew during their free flight on how the ride uphill to orbit was before they move into what are called far-field demonstrations of the vehicle. That will include manual piloting tasks and a manual translation control test. That will prove Starliner's ability to execute a manual docking if required, as well as an abort capability prior to docking. Keep in mind, we're providing continuous coverage now of Starliner's flight to the International Space Station. On Thursday morning, rendezvous operations will begin in earnest shortly before 10 a.m. Eastern Time, leading to a targeted docking for Starliner to the station at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time. So please stay with us around the clock as we bring you every minute of Starliner's flight. For now, we're going to sign off from the International Space Station Flight Control Room here in Houston and go back to Megan, Dee, and Mike Fink at the Cape.
Hey, and welcome back to the Space Coast of Florida, where about 36 minutes ago we witnessed the launch of a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket carrying the first 2 astronauts, NASA's Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, inside Boeing's Starliner capsule to the International Space Station. The first time ever, Starliner now in the right orbit to rendezvous with the space station in just over 25 hours. How are you guys feeling? How was it to watch launch? Again, just right over the water behind us here.
I mean, this is extremely exciting, obviously a long time coming and a culmination of so much hard work by so many teams. But of course, we're going to be even happier when we see Starliner dock, and even happier when the hatch opens and we watch Suni and Butch float into the International Space Station.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, well said, Dee. I mean, this is exciting. We've built up to this moment for years and years, and it finally happened. I got to see a Starliner launch with my friends on board. How cool is that? And I could feel like the whole planet was cheering for them.
Yeah, it was really nice to see it happen. There were a lot of emotions here at the host desk among the 3 of us, as well as the crew that's supporting us here on the host desk. And it's just a history-making launch. Suni, again, the first woman to test an orbital spacecraft. That's amazing. And then again, the last time people flew to space in an Atlas-class rocket, 61 years ago. CFT, this final test to certify Starliner. And then once in orbit, the first time in NASA history that the agency will have 3 different crew spacecraft operating in space simultaneously. So that's the International Space Station, SpaceX's Crew Dragon, and again, once Boeing Starliner spacecraft gets there, Boeing Starliner spacecraft. So really just like a lot to celebrate. It's amazing. You know, Mike, I know you've been part of Starliner's journey from the very beginning, working alongside Butch and Suni and all the teams across Boeing, NASA, ULA. So talk to us, how does it feel to see this rocket from your perspective?
I was so impressed all the way through the launch countdown and all the way through orbital insertion burn. Everything was just like the final simulation exercise they give us back at Johnson Space Center, where they just give us everything nominal. And there we are. Everything was fine. No hiccups, no drama, nothing to worry about. And so I was really happy with Butch and Suni, and for Butch and Suni, and happy with the whole team. As Butch said, thank you to the United Launch Alliance for a great ride up, and welcome them to the club of rocket companies that can send humans into space. Now we just got to get to space station in 24-ish hours.
That want to discuss, let me know if you're there.
And we've been asking for some questions on social media, so we still want to get to those because there have been a lot. So why don't we pull up one question here right now? This one's from Ramon. What is your favorite part of being an astronaut, Mike? Is it days like this?
Definitely days like this, Ramon. Very much glad to be an astronaut on this day. I think Butch and Suni might be a little bit happier than me to be an astronaut today, but this is definitely a great day. And if you're not on the rocket yourself, helping your friends is a really great way to be an astronaut.
And so, Mike, talk to us about, this is, again, a crewed flight test. Certification is what's next for Starliner. So what's the process to get us to your flight next year?
Well, first we have to, Butch and Suni, they've gotten to orbit. That's, kind of step 1. Now they got to get to the space station and complete their flight test objectives. Once they land safely in a desert somewhere with the airbags, and we'll analyze. The Boeing team will analyze the flight test data, see if any improvements, any changes, any things that can be improved and made, and then we'll get ready for us at the post-certification mission number 1 that we call Starliner 1. I think Dragon had a similar one. They called themselves Crew 1. Well, we're Starliner 1, and we'll be ready to fly when the spacecraft is.
Right. And so obviously there's still a lot on this road for Starliner, but when you do fly next year on Starliner 1, Mike, I know that there's a bunch of people here who are very excited for you, so much so that they created this shirt.
Oh, no.
I love it.
Mike Fink Fan Club. That's right. Oh, he's hiding, guys. He's hiding behind his computer right now.
I am deeply humbled. Thank you.
No, yes. It just goes to show that so many people are invested in Boeing and NASA and ULA working together on the Starliner program. So we celebrated together with the crewed flight test today and launch. And again, we still have so much more of the mission to go, and we can't wait for your flight for Starliner 1. All righty.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again to everyone who submitted questions throughout the broadcast. You really helped to contribute to the broadcast. And Mike, really great to have you here marking this historic launch with us.
it's great to be on the team, and you guys are both are extreme professionals, as well as our production team and the PAO team that's right up the hill from us. Great job, everyone.
Absolutely, and today's liftoff could not have happened without the many teams across the country supporting this launch, which of course is just the first of many critical milestones for this flight test.
Yeah, that's right, Dee. So our coverage tonight, or today, won't end here. First up, we have a post-launch news conference starting at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time right here on NASA TV, followed by continuous coverage of Butch and Sunny's transit to the International Space Station. Starliner is on course to dock at the station in just over 25 hours from now, and then the ISS crew will welcome them on board. Again, we will take all of that live on NASA TV, NASA Plus, and our social media channels.
You know, and their journey will provide the data needed to bring Boeing closer to having the continuous privilege of carrying astronauts to and from the space station.
Hey, and that's the perfect opportunity, right, to pull up this QR code we have ready for you. If you scan it, it'll take you to go.nasa.gov/CFT, where you will find everything you'd want to know about this crew flight test and also NASA's commercial crew program, which is why we're flying today.
Mike, it's been great to have you with us. Your insight today was important and invaluable.
Thank you very much, and the Boeing company should get a big pat on the back today for a job well done so far.
Yes, again, congratulations to all the team. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Mike. We really appreciate your time here on the official launch broadcast of NASA's Boeing crew flight tests. And that's going to do it for us here on the Space Coast of Florida. For Boeing, ULA, and NASA, thank you so much for watching our official broadcast of this historic cruise. We leave you now with a replay of launch. Have a spectacular day. Here are the astronauts, Commander Butch Wilmore and pilot Sunny Williams, as you can see, suiting up for their mission into the history books.
This is a tradition. The whole idea here is to lose to the chief.
Out of the suit-up room, Commander Butch Wilmore and pilot Sunny Williams walking to an elevator at the end of the hallway. Our CFT crew taking their first steps outside, now en route to launch pad 41.
Crew transport vehicle is into the pad.
Butch and Sunny arriving on level 12.
Last look at planet Earth for a while, saying hi to us. Hi, Sunny.
Butch getting in there.
Gotten strapped into their seats here.
Hatch closure complete. Roger.
3, 2, 1, ignition. And liftoff of Starliner and Atlas V, carrying 2 American heroes, drawing a line to the stars for all of us.
Commander Butch Wilmore, they're calling down to mission control here in Houston that the spacecraft has begun rolling into the right attitude for its ascent, and guidance, navigation, and control officer here in the room seeing good data on that.